Yeah, things have been good. Things have been also equally, they've been challenging though as well. Right now we are in the midst of COVID. So I have a gallery that I recently just started. I
It
got
looks beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I can
So
still
cute.
utilize it, not in the sense that I thought I was going to, but yes. So I'm here in my gallery right now. And, it's been interesting because it's been a huge learning lesson. It's really taught me a lot about how to basically spin this into something positive. And it's given me a challenge because I can now not really focus on selling my art in the traditional sense because right now, I mean, obviously fine art is certainly not a necessity and is not what people are thinking about buying. It's a luxury item. So my traditional mode of making money and running this place has been to sell art traditionally. So now I've kind of had to get creative and think outside the box and how else can not just make money, but how else can I bring more awareness to my brand and keep all of this, everything that I've built after so many years, how do I keep this all afloat so it doesn't just die? So it's been a challenge and it's been a big learning lesson, and I'm figuring it out along the way as
Sure.
as everyone else is, right? So I know that I'm certainly not alone, and everybody's definitely facing this in their own personal regard. So
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your career journey? So did you go to college for art? Has this always been your passion?
yeah, so as far as the journey goes, it's funny. I've always been. We'll just take you back a little bit farther. So I've
Yeah,
always been.
I like the Wayback Machine. Like, what did you
Oh,
do
okay.
in
All right.
college? Well, yeah.
We still got a little time. So, all right. So yeah, if you go way back, I mean, I've always been a creative at heart. I've always been an artist at heart. I always loved creating, always loved making, inventing, building. And so I really gravitated towards my art classes in school.
Sure.
So those were always the classes that I was the most excited to be in. Those were the classes I excelled at, especially come high school when, art, it was an elective then. So I got to
Yeah.
like make the choice to, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And I would always gravitate towards the creative classes. It wasn't until after graduating though, that I just didn't know what I wanted to do for a living. So I graduated high school in 2002 and, my gut always wanted to be a creator or an artist of some kind for a living, but society kind of always led me to believe that you can't make a living as an artist, that, unless you want to be starving your whole life, that this
Yeah.
isn't exactly it's not exactly a lucrative career path. And so I started looking at other types of careers where I could still be creative. So I dabbled in interior design because, just that's all visual and it kind of all ties into creativity. So I actually went to school originally for interior design. And I kind of found out that interior design at the time, it just felt like it was more about once I started. Yeah, it was just, there was so much about like sales and that really didn't appeal to me, even though like, I feel like that's all I do now. But at the time I was just so fixated on, I just want to land these amazing clients and do these amazing projects. But, it's really hard to like get yourself into the industry. I also didn't have the work ethic that I have now back in this point in time. So I had to do a little soul searching and reevaluating as far as what it is that I want to do. And the idea of becoming a teacher and teaching art kind of sparked something within me. It seemed like a really great idea. And, I always loved the idea of, I remember my art teachers making such an impression on me and how fulfilling those classes were for me. And so for me to be able to give that back to another student that completely and utterly, cherishes the outlet that art classes can provide, if I can give that back to students as well, how fulfilling would that be? So, this is when North Central came into play. So, because it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. Therefore, it took me a long time. My college journey was not a short one.
Okay.
It was not a short one. It was actually
Important message to note though, because I'm still figuring out what I want to do when I grow up. And I think there's a lot of people that kind of feel like that. And, like you're in high school and you have to have it all figured out, or college even, and that's not the case.
it was certain, I mean, and for those that it is, like my hat goes off to them, because I think that it's really hard when you're that young to just have it all figured out. And so for me, it took me a good 9 years. So I stretched out my college days. I did. I mean, I was in school and then I was out of school and then I was in school and I was out of school. So it was a really long process of me trying to figure out like, what the hell do I want to do? And where do I go from here? So I enrolled at North Central, I believe it was in 2009. And this is when it's like, okay, I have a plan and it feels really, really good. And so that's where I started taking my classes for both education and for art. So I had all my fine art courses as well as my education courses.
And are you doing art like along the way, just on the side for fun during this time?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of always doing my own projects. So I had my own little creative projects on the side that I would be doing, nothing to make money, just, it would be more crafty things, it'd just be like, I loved upcycling things. So I loved taking, something that would otherwise be thrown in the garbage and turn it into something. Like I got in a phase where I was doing a lot of art projects with wine corks, and I even used toilet paper rolls, and I don't know, it was just silly, crafty things.
Yeah.
And
not silly.
Well, it wasn't really serving me any purpose other than just fulfillment of being creative, really. Yeah. And so where was I? So I was, I enrolled at North Central and I started taking my courses in education and fine art. And all of my art courses at North Central actually kept me very busy creatively, because I was either working in the studio at the school or I was bringing my projects home and constantly working and creating. And this just opened up a whole nother realm of creativity for me. And I really, really embraced it and I really loved it. So funny enough, after 9 years of college, I finally graduated, and it's like, I've got the certificate, I can get a classroom, I can finally work. However, I wasn't able to utilize it because my husband, who is also Canadian, he had just gotten a job in Toronto, so back in his hometown. So we were to move, and that meant that moving to another country meant that I could not legally work. So I had this new degree.
You have it all figured out. Yeah.
No, exactly. So just when I thought I had it all figured out, that is when I couldn't utilize what I had gained. Yeah. And so we moved to Toronto. And in order for me to start working, I had to apply for a permanent residency. And the permanent residency, however, took 2 solid years to come through. So it's a very, very long process, at least it was in my case. And so for those 2 years, I couldn't work. So I was, I was a nanny under the table, just kind of making cash under the table because like I still have to make a living. And then I was making art. So we got this adorable little brownstone apartment in downtown Toronto, and there was this bonus room. It was a little sunroom, actually. And in the sunroom, it was only, I think, 8 feet by 8 feet. It was teeny tiny, but that was where my little studio was. And I was just creating and creating and creating, except now this is when social media comes into play. So now, I'm more active on Facebook. So this was back in 2011. So I was more active on Facebook, obviously. Facebook had been, sort of in the scene for a while. But Instagram just kind of came out, or not came out, but that's when I joined it at least. So yeah. I jumped onto Instagram in 2011. So I started creating a lot of paintings at the time, and I started posting them onto social media. And I started to realize that people were reaching out to me and asking me about inquiries like, hey, is that for sale? Or if I give you a picture of my dog, can you paint my dog? Or, hey, I just went on this beautiful vacation to Venice, Italy. Could you paint this picture that I took when I was there? So it was just like little inquiries like that. And so I started to realize, oh my goodness, it seems as though people are willing to exchange their money for my art. Isn't this like what artists do?
And were they offering money, or was it more like, can you do it? And then you kind of had to figure out if they were willing.
Like they wanted to commission me. So
I mean,
now granted, I had no idea how to charge. And that was one of the big learning curves was, well, God, how do I value my art, or how do I charge? I don't know what to charge. And I mean, those days I was charging next to nothing. I was just happy that someone was asking me to create something for them.
Only I bought one back then.
Yeah.
But I could
that did, yes. You got in at a good time. But yeah, so I started creating more and more art. And at the time, I started getting back into my unconventional ways of making art. And I always loved creating art in unconventional ways that just kind of made the piece a little bit more noteworthy, made the piece stand out, gave the piece a story or an impact, if you will. And so I started dabbling in all these unconventional methods, which is what ultimately led me to creating with lipstick. So I've never been like a makeup junkie. I've never even been much of like a lipstick wearer myself. And that's actually a fun fact, is that I actually never really even wore lipstick up until like 4 years ago, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a chapstick gal, but I felt like I should wear some in honor of you, so I did.
Well, it's beautiful on you. You have a beautiful mouth. You should like embrace that with your lipstick. Yes. Well, and honestly, I was the same way, totally the same way. I was a chapstick kind of girl, and I just felt like when I would wear lipstick, I felt like it made my face stand out too much or something. Yeah. But I also broke it down to, I think this is just a confidence thing. Like, you know, so with like self-confidence came the confidence to be bold and wear lipstick and not be afraid of who cares if my face stands out? Like, why do I care? You know? Yeah. And, but that's a whole nother story. But so anyway, all of these unconventional modes of art is what ultimately led me to the lipstick route. So it started because I was about to create a portrait of Marilyn Monroe, and I was trying to create her in an unconventional way that would still correlate with Marilyn. Yeah. And the idea of utilizing a feminine product like lipstick and putting my actual kisses in the piece, because that's just sort of like the wow factor. And she was so famously known for blowing her kisses too. So that is how that idea blossomed. Mm-hmm. And
absolutely genius. Yeah, I love it.
Well, thank you. I was very excited about the idea, and my husband loved the idea, and he's like, "Oh my God, we got to post this on YouTube, and it's just gonna go viral." Yeah. So he had big plans for this idea. So did that idea come like right away, or was it something you thought about on how to make it unconventional and stand out? You know, it was because my mind was constantly, the wheels in my mind were constantly turning, trying to think of like, okay, what's something really cool that I could do? I love doing portraiture. So it's like, who's like an icon that I could create in an unconventional way, but I want whatever that medium is to somehow correlate with the person that I'm creating. Yeah. So I wanted it to make sense, in that regard. So I was, and just I'm trying to think back now. So this is a horrible example, but for example, like I did a portrait of my dog at one point, and I used dog food. This sounds.
I saw that. I love it. Yeah.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, I love it. I saw it. Yeah. It was amazing.
It's cute. It's really cute. And it wasn't wet dog food, you know, because that's really gross, but it was like kibble. It was kibble, but creating my dog portrait out of kibble. Yeah. So that's kind of what I mean about having the medium correlate with the subject.
Yeah. Well, and I'm asking you about that because I teach a creativity course, and one of the tips that we give people is to combine two things that don't normally go together. So now that you put them together, it makes total sense. But prior to that, it wasn't something that went together. Makeup and a canvas, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's just not, it's not traditional to put that medium to that medium, right? And so, and that's exactly it. And so that's what planted the seed with lipstick. And so we posted it to YouTube, and it actually did get a really good response. Yeah. It didn't go viral, but actually, I don't know. At this point, I think it's had maybe like 1 million views or something like that. But that's been like a slow and steady progression over the course of the handful of years. It's not like it happened overnight. But even still, it was something that people got excited about. And it was, it just felt it just felt Josh, my husband, he said to me, he's like, Lex, I feel like this is like your golden nugget. I think you need to really harness this because nobody else is doing this. And because you put your actual kisses in the piece, there's such a wow factor there. And there's a story there. And like, what's the symbolism behind the kiss print? And then that really got me thinking like, well, it's not just about creating a portrait of somebody and, you know, out of an unconventional medium. It's how can I tie a story to it? And so that's when I started to reel in the idea of, you know, beauty and love and self-love and like, what does the kiss print symbolize? What does that mean to people? And so it was an evolution of, you know, what does lipstick mean and what does the kiss print mean and how can I tie that into the subjects that I choose to paint? So it's been quite an evolving process to say the least.
What is it like to even paint with the lipstick and work with the lipstick as a medium, I guess?
Well, it's, you know, when I started, I was only using red. So I never even thought to see what other colors under the sun there was. So I was only using red and I was primarily using my kisses. And so it was, for anyone that hasn't seen my artwork, if you scroll like way to the bottom of my Instagram feed, you'll see some of my first pieces. Yeah. And you'll see that it's just red on red. And it's very like flat and two-dimensional because you can only get so much depth perception with a flat kiss print. So in order for me to like be able to add more detail into my artwork and to add more depth and to add more shadow, I realized like, why am I like limiting myself to just kissing the canvas? First of all, it's extremely laborious to just kiss. And secondly, one reason I love making art is because I like using my hands and I'm not using my hands. So this is a stupid rule that I'm creating for myself. And so that's when I started drawing with the lipstick and I started using cosmetic brushes and painting with the lipstick. And that way I was able to blend colors and get more defined line and details, things like that. So I still put my kisses in all of my pieces. It's sort of my signature now, and I will adorn each piece with my actual kiss prints, but a lot of it is hand painted. But a lot of people don't realize that because now I work with a full color palette and I've got the yellow and the blue and the green. So people just will walk by it and think it's just a painting with paint until they get up close and they see the kisses. And I explain to them, well, it's actually multicolored lipsticks.
Yeah.
So
cool. And so what happened with the Marilyn Monroe picture? Where is that today?
So that would be, so my very first lipstick Lex investor, she actually lives in Toronto and she was a mother at the school that my husband taught at. So my husband was also a teacher back at the time. Okay. And so she had found out about me and my art just through the school that he worked at. And she was a huge Marilyn Monroe fan. Oh, awesome. And so my husband said to her, oh my God, well, you've got to hear about this piece that my wife just made. And so he sent her the YouTube link and she was like, oh my God, I have to have it. And so she bought it. So she was my first lipstick Lex investor. So yes.
And then there's a pizza place that bought a lot of your work, right? Or a restaurant?
Oh yeah, you're referring to the documentary that you recently or not the documentary, the little.
I saw something on Instagram. I stalk you on Instagram, so.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
So that was actually so in Westmont, so it's a suburb outside of Chicago. My in-laws are good friends with the owner of this restaurant called Vince Torres, and my mother-in-law, she kind of helped decorate the restaurant a little bit. And so she had told Bobby, that's the name of the owner, about me and my work. And he's like, yes, absolutely. We need to get her art in here. This is incredible. And he said, it'd be really great if we could tie in some of, the classic Italian, the Rat Pack kind of, icon. So I did a Frank Sinatra, a Dean Martin.
My husband would love this. He's from Elmwood Park, Italian. Oh. So he would love this.
Oh yeah, for sure. You guys should go in there then. It's in downtown Westmont, just by the tracks there. And I've got, I think 14 pieces hanging up, but they're some of my very first ones. So it's really cool to see the progression of some of my earlier works. compared to these works. So
yeah. And to me, portraiture is the most difficult to do. I mean, I could draw an animal, I guess, sort of, but if I try to draw a face, like I'm done.
It's, yeah, you know, faces are, I like, that's how I'm with hands. I'm like that with hands. It's hard for me to master hands, but I've gotten good with faces over the years. But I think one reason I was always drawn to doing faces was because of the challenge and like that feeling of like, oh yeah, got it, you know, when it's done. But yeah, it's a difficult subject. There's no question.
And it's beautiful. And your Instagram is really fun to follow, by the way, very positive. So I encourage everybody to go follow Lipstick Lex on Instagram. And so can you talk a little bit about the turning it into a business part and what that looked like?
Yeah.
I know it sort of takes the fun out of it, but you sort of have to do that in order to evolve and scale and
absolutely
continue to do this as a living.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was the biggest learning curve for me. It still is. I'm still learning so much as far as how to run a business. I never went to school for business. I never was business minded or business savvy. Didn't really know a damn thing about marketing or, you know, advertising or anything like that. So honestly, I kind of jumped into this business, which I just sort of naturally created, I guess. So it was more about, first I created the brand. You know, I gave myself a title. I don't know, we'll call it Lipstick Lex. And I probably could have come up with something more interesting, but at the time, you know, back in 2012 or whenever I gave myself the name, you know, it seemed fitting and it flowed. Yeah. So I started by just giving myself the name, and I focused on just utilizing these free platforms on social media. This is a way that I can market and advertise myself for free. I don't need anyone to do it for me. And so then it was just a lot of creating content. So like the more creative content I put out there and the more I push it on social media, the more eyeballs that will start to see it. So that was kind of like the first introductory processes. And then over the course of time, once I started feeling more confident about my portfolio, my body of work and what I was doing, and I was creating a lot of videos as well, I started just pitching myself to anybody, galleries, companies, people. I just started pitching myself anywhere I could. I just basically, for lack of a better phrase, I just threw a bunch of shit until something stuck, kind of thing. And
in person or over email, or how were you doing this?
It was primarily over email. It would either be email or I would write people private messages on social media. If I had an opportunity to meet somebody face to face, I would definitely do that. I mean, I would just go and walk into galleries and be like, hi, my name's Alexis. And, you know, and I would just pitch myself. And to be honest, like, I gotta tell you, it was just failure after failure after failure. And it was difficult because with pitching yourself, you know, I didn't have an agent or a manager representing me or anything like that. You know, I always kind of felt icky promoting and pitching myself, but it's like, this is what I want to do and somebody has to do it. So I might as well do it myself.
Yeah. And when you're walking to a gallery, what's the pitch? Like, will you host my paintings here for sale? Is that how it works? Or what?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was really hard to walk in and even like speak to somebody. So you kind of have to set that up ahead of time. Gallery owners don't like artists to just walk in and be like, hey, stop what you're doing and look at my work. Yeah. So I learned very quickly, you need to set up a meeting first. Don't just walk in with a portfolio under your arm, because that might have been the way people did it like back in the past, but now people like to be notified if somebody's coming, you know? So that's definitely a tip. If you're going to walk in, make sure you set up an appointment via phone or email. But yeah, so I would go in and like, let's say I had an appointment. So I would go in and I would have, you know, a couple pieces, like physical pieces available, just small ones that I could carry in with me. And then I would make sure that my, all of my pieces that were on my phone, like via my Instagram feed, or this is also, I just set up a website for myself. So I'd make sure my website was handy, and I would just like have them there to display. And I would just say, this is what I'm doing. I'm using an unconventional method here, and this is my artwork. And so, and most of the time, and I don't know, I think galleries can smell a sense of like unprofessionalism, you know, just based on based on your delivery and based on your content that you have to show them. So at the time, you know, I was creating this lipstick art, but my subject matter was still kind of a little bit all over the place because I was trying to fulfill art for other people. I wasn't making art for myself. So I had this lipstick body of work, but I had stuff from portraits to plants to animals to sceneries. So there wasn't that cohesiveness that I think a lot of galleries like to see. And so it was a bit of a struggle in the beginning, but these are all things that I figured out over the course of time. and so
what was the reaction to using lipstick?
Usually the reaction was pretty like, they would like first be like kind of confused and raise their eyebrows, and they weren't really sure what I was talking about. And then I'd say, you just have to see it to understand what I'm talking about. So it's just, if you can just like take a minute to just look at what I'm talking about, and then it will make sense. And after they see it, they usually were very much in awe about it, and they thought it was really cool and something really different. However, it's still, I don't know why, but it was always a difficult sell still. And people would say, or I would be asked questions such as, well, you know, who represents you, or where else have you shown your work? And it's really hard when you're just starting out because you don't have those references yet. And you don't have, you know, major companies or, you know, private commissions that you can, you know, accolades that you can flaunt or, you know, provide for them. So it's about them being willing to take a risk or take a chance on you, if you will, right? So, but yeah, it was just constant perseverance and getting used to being told no and being okay with being told no, because the thing is what I've learned is out of like 100 pitches, you might only gain like 5, you know, maybe less. You're going to be told no more than you're going to be told yes, even if what you're doing is amazing. Even now, I feel like I've developed a really good name for myself, and I have a really nice looking body of work, and I have a really good portfolio. And I've also worked with some really incredible brands and companies over the course of the years. And it looks good to say, you know, I've worked with Sephora or I've worked with MAC Cosmetics, but that doesn't mean that it's going to land me the next job that I try to pitch, right? So it's just a matter of constantly putting yourself out there, being used to being rejected. Don't stop because you got rejected. Just learn from that rejection. Why did they say no? How can I change my pitch for next time to make it better? What can I do in my own brand to make it better? What can I do to make myself and my work seem more professional? And then just put that towards your next pitch.
So, yeah, was there a time where you ever like, maybe I should do something different or I should quit, or you always felt you would move forward?
I always had feelings of like, what am I doing? And is this going to work? But I just have such a passion to just succeed. And I don't know where that comes from. I don't know. I never thought of myself as being the entrepreneurial type. However, there must be something within me because I just can't stop. I'm kind of like addicted to making this work. Yeah. And so there have been plenty of times that I want to throw in the towel, especially when times get scary as far as when's my next sale and how am I going to pay this bill, things like that. But for whatever reason, I've been able, I don't know if it's just my utmost belief, but I always seem to have had just enough to take me to the next month and to the next month and to keep it going and to propel it forward. But I don't think that that's going to happen if you doubt yourself entirely. You have to have the belief, not to sound like super wooey or whatever, but
no, it's an important message about resilience, and entrepreneurship is hard. And
yep. But if you can see it and you can see your success story and you believe it in your hardest of hearts, then somehow it's just going to pan out. It's just going to work. You just have to trust the process.
You can go back and have your pretty woman moment and be like, big mistake.
Yes. Yeah. I love it.
I'm a part of a startup now, and we're in the cold calling phase, and it's tough, man. I mean, it's 100 no's and maybe 3 yeses. And so it's tough. But you gotta keep going, and you're so new. It's the only way to get eyeballs on what you're doing is just picking up the phone and calling people.
that's all you, I mean, that's all you can do. I mean, you're not gonna, you, you can't receive any yeses at all if you don't try. Right. So
yeah, good point.
I mean, you've just gotta get used to the no's and be totally okay with the no's, and okay, great, moving on, you know?
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's all about perseverance, truly.
Yeah. And you touched a little bit on self-love, and some of your pieces even say that. And, you know, my question is around art. I would feel like it's somewhat fragile in that it's open to judgment from other people. Like, even if I do like a PowerPoint, I'm like, ooh, are they going to like the design that I did or whatever? It's somewhat fragile. Do you ever get that feeling about your art, or have you gotten better at that over time, about letting people see your artwork and, you know, having it be open to scrutiny and judgment in any way?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely pieces that people absolutely love, and then there have been pieces that people just don't get, or they don't understand, or it makes them uncomfortable. I recently did a portrait actually of Ellen DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi, and I did it for Pride Month last year. And it's a beautiful portrait of them, but they're just like embracing each other, and they're smiling, and they look like they're about to go in for a kiss. So it was all about, because my art it's about love, and it's about inclusivity, thank you. I don't know why I just can't say that word right now. And so I'm trying to embody and embrace that. And I just find that there's such amazing role models that have helped pave the way for so many people. And so I wanted to create this piece, this iconic piece. Obviously, I wanted to pitch it to Ellen as well.
Not a bad plan.
No, not a bad plan at all. And that piece just made a lot of people uncomfortable. I don't know. It just didn't go, yep. There were people that absolutely loved it. And then there were a lot of people that felt uncomfortable with it as well. So it's just, but that's the thing but to be an artist, I think there almost has to be an element of, you don't want to appeal to everybody.
Yeah, right.
Because then, like, what makes you so, there almost has to be some kind of controversy or something to drum up emotions with people. And I feel like those are the ones that you see are the most successful.
Yeah, I always say you haven't made it until you have haters. And usually when I start to get negative comments, then I'm like, I've made it.
That's it. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So once you start getting the trolls and the negative comments, then, you know, my mom actually was the first one to remind me of that, because once I started putting myself out there onto YouTube, especially, so Business Insider at one point, this was like my first viral video I had. Business Insider had posted like this montage of me creating and what I do and just a bunch of my pieces. And because this YouTube video didn't come from me, it was put out to the world from another source and a very large platform. So therefore it received just like oodles and oodles and oodles of comments.
Don't read the comments.
What's that?
Don't read the comments.
Oh yes. And I did. And that was one point, going back to your question of, did you ever want to throw in the towel? It was due to that I wanted to throw in the towel, because the comments were so awful. They were so awful and so mean. And then it was like, it started making me question, oh my gosh, is what I'm doing disgusting? Or, oh my gosh, is what I'm doing completely weird? Or, oh my gosh, is what I'm doing like totally projecting sex? Or just the comments and like the things that people came up with were so ridiculous. But, you know, my mom said the exact, what you just said. She's like, Lex, you've got haters, honey. That means that you're doing something right. So
yeah, that's unbelievable though. Cause I look at your work and it's like, I wouldn't even think of any of those things. So that's on them. That's not you.
Exactly. That's just my mom, as my mom likes to call them, they're just losers behind a laptop. Okay.
Well, and I also like to tell myself, like, I can't put too much stake in the positive comments either, because then I'm going to put a lot of stake in the negative comments. So I have to do it because it's genuine for me and it feels good for me. And it's something that I'm passionate about, which that's an impression from you. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So you also have a nonprofit that you recently formed, Kisses for a Cause.
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. We just started it. So I have donated just tens of thousands of dollars through my art to charities throughout the years, charities that I believe in, or I've taken the funds from what I've earned and I put it towards other foundations that I believe in. So, and my sister actually, so she's, a huge, she works with nonprofits all the time. And she's like, Lex, you need to have a nonprofit. And I said, I don't even understand how a nonprofit really works. So she said, I'll help you get it set up. And she, taught me all the ins and outs of the nonprofit. And again, this just kind of goes into the whole play of like, you don't have to know how something works. Just take the first step and you'll figure it out as you go, right? So she set up my nonprofit, helped me get my nonprofit set up. So yes, it's called Kisses for a Cause. And the whole idea behind it is to be able to embrace other local artists and to be able to give back through my work that all embodies the idea of love and care, and be able to deliver that to the world. So right now we're working on a special project. We're trying to work with this whole COVID case right now, and we're trying to put out community kits for the public. So we're trying to, we're creating these kits that are geared towards low-income families. And right now, as a mother of 2 children, I can only imagine what it must be like, especially as a single mom right now, who all of a sudden is out of work, has no income, her kids are home, she needs to homeschool, and she doesn't have any money to diaper her child because, the crazies before her just bought 20 packs of diapers at a time. So it's just, it's got to be a really difficult situation for a lot of people right now. So right now we're working on a project to raise money for these low-income families. We're actually partnering with Feeding Tampa Bay, and we're basically just trying to build this thing. But just like any business, this is a nonprofit that's brand spanking new. So it's about getting the word out there and trying to, it's again, hearing a lot of rejections, because to be able to do something like this, you need money to fund it. And especially right now, so many banks and companies and individuals are putting forth money towards mega giant charities right now, and I'm not the Red Cross, right? So, it's just trying to unleash this new nonprofit and let people know what it's about and what I want to do with it, and, hopefully do something impactful. But over the course of time, I definitely want to, just continue to bring awareness back to Kisses for a Cause, get donations where I can, because I want to be able to put that towards, causes that I believe in, and, try and put my own spin on them too. So.
And I think you're in it for the long game, and, it's going to take time to build that up. You could do that with your business. So can you talk a little bit about your beautiful gallery that you're in? And
yeah, so my gallery was, this was truly a dream. I have dreamt of having my own gallery. Like I said, I came from, my studio space in Toronto was 8 feet by 8 feet, and so it's like now I have 2,600 square feet here to play with. And it's just incredible. It was truly a dream. It was something that I've worked the better part of my adulthood towards. And what's great about my gallery is it's not just a place for me to create my art and for me to display and sell my art, but ultimately our goal for this place, and now it's, obviously all being put on hold right now, but it's not just a gallery, it's an event space as well. And similar to what I'm trying to do with my nonprofit, I want to help support our local artisans. And what we want to do is we want to bring in local talent. So not just visual artists, but our main goal is like, let's bring in local musicians, and let's bring in local comics, and let's bring in local, let's do slam poetry. Let's have dueling piano bar nights. Like, let's make this place a fun, warm, inviting place that people want to be, because I have been in so many art galleries that are stuffy and they're cold and they're intimidating, and I'll like peer in the windows, and once the salesperson sees me, I run away kind of thing. Like, that is not what I want to have here. I want to have a gallery that, the door is open, the music is on, and people are here. And so we're trying to, the little slogan that's actually on my door, it says, not your ordinary gallery or your ordinary artist. So it's like, I am not an ordinary artist. I do not want to have an ordinary gallery. So Yeah. So that's the intention for the gallery. It was definitely quite a, I don't know, it was definitely quite a punch in the gut, I guess,
Yeah.
when my gallery launch was actually the very weekend that our nation was told to quarantine. So it was a lot of work and build up and, poured a lot into the opening of this gallery, and then it never even really got to happen. So, all that's just going to have to be put on hold. And in the meantime, I'm just trying to reinvent what I'm doing a little bit to make sure that, all of this can stay afloat. And so it's taken a lot of inner work and thinking outside the box and getting extra creative. If I can't sell my art traditionally right now as a mode to keep all this afloat, then what else can I do? So yeah.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful that it will come back at some point. It's just, is it 2 months from now or is it 6 months from now?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so what can we expect next from you then?
Yeah. I mean, right now it's all about expanding my brand. So my brand isn't just going to be about art. So art is going to be a part of it, but I have plans I have big plans of things that I want to do that involve my nonprofit. So you're going to see stuff come from that. I have plans to do like these little art kits, these makeup kits. I have plans to write a children's book I have a few different things that I have in the works right now. I don't necessarily want to reveal all of them just yet, but it's, I have a lot of different ideas of ways that I can utilize my brand, Lipstick Lex, and what Lipstick Lex means. Like, what does my brand encapsulate? Well, it encapsulates love and self-love and beauty and personal empowerment and positivity and just feel good vibes all around. So basically taking all of those elements and taking all those elements and this brand and like, what can I turn that into besides just fine art, right? And so I'm working on a few side projects and we'll see how it all unravels. But
very exciting. Yeah. And I love the whole brand, and I know some people think it's frou-frou, but the positivity works. I'm telling you.
People need positivity,
Yeah.
And the people that, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And the people that want it are the ones that seek it. And that's your vibe attracts your tribe, as I always say. So
yeah. It's easy to get into that kind of woe is me, things are happening to me. But it's once you flip out of that, it's so much better mindset to be in, that positivity. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so if people want to engage with you, what's the best way to do it? Obviously Instagram, but.
Yeah, for sure. I'm all about the Insta. I actually just joined TikTok, which I'm still trying to figure out.
Oh gosh, I'm like, I know. I don't know if I should. I have a 14-year-old daughter, so she's like, yeah, you should, but.
She can coach you. I wish I had a 14-year-old daughter to coach me. I have no idea what I'm doing. But yes, so people can reach me obviously on Instagram. You can write me a DM there or reach out to me in my comments. But my email, it's lex@lipsticklex.com. If people want to check me out on my website, that's lipsticklex.com. And those are my main.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. I could talk to you all day, but I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on, and hopefully this gives some insight to somebody else out there. So
no, we're normally talking to business folks, so I love kind of the departure and the more creative, artistic side.
Yeah, exactly. It just goes to show that creatives can be business savvy too. Not figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything is figure outable.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.